So nice to end a long day with a nice warm bath and...
Jean-Paul Marat, stabbed to death in his bath on July 13th, 1793, in the midst of the shit show that was called the French Revolution. Who was he? Why was he killed? And why does he look so...
Jesus Christ! What the fuck is wrong with this one?
This is the Death of Marat, painted in 1793 by Jacques-Louis David. And now, CSI lovers, let's explore this nasty crime scene. At the center, we see Jean-Paul Marat, slumped lifeless in a bathtub. His body is pale, almost luminous against the dark, empty background. A white cloth wraps around his head, and another drapes over the edge of the tub, softening the scene with a sense of fragile calm. There is very little visible violence. A small wound marks his chest, but there is almost no blood. The background is nearly black and empty, isolating him completely, turning the scene into something intimate and almost sacred. The light falls softly across his body, reminiscent of religious paintings, transforming him from a political figure into something closer to a martyr. The simplicity, the stillness, makes the moment feel less like a horrendous crime was just committed and more like a dance at a halt. To understand why David chose to display his friend Marat this way, we need to talk about them both and about the holy spirit of every painting, the commissioner. This video is sponsored by the French Revolution.
Hold!
Yes.
Once and for all, can you please explain to me the French Revolution?
Sure thing. I'll make this quick. So, Louis XVI became king at 14, and while 14-year-olds are known for their immense wisdom, tact, and leadership skills, maybe, just maybe, it wasn't the smartest idea. Marie Antoinette was too busy shepherding a fake farm she had built on taxpayers' money and asking them to eat brioche, not cake, folks. France was deeply in debt after expensive wars, including support for the American Revolutionary War. That caused increased taxes, mainly for the poor people, which, combined with a poor harvest, led to rising prices of food. Many people could barely afford to eat. At the same time, Enlightenment ideas encouraged the French people to challenge a system that favored the wealthy and powerful. By 1775, Louis was mastering the art of duct taping a sinking ship, as riots grew in frequency. The General Assembly came together. There were even social fashion rules that needed to be applied, much like Coachella. The French Revolution was happening simultaneously from the top and the bottom. Appointed officials were taking down the king, while things like the storming of the Bastille were happening at the same time by the common people. Tearing down all the establishments and releasing the entirety of the 7 prisoners that were in it, along with a bunch of guns, obviously. Bye-bye, king. Welcome anarchy. Not yet, at least. So, at this point, people still kind of stayed mannered, and they released a Declaration of the Rights of Man.
That sounds quite nice.
Okay, I'm going to speed forward through the French Revolution. A bunch of people were sent to the guillotine, God was fired, and that's where my dear friend David comes into play. Jacques-Louis David was born in France in 1748. He grew up in an affluent family in Paris. A pretty stable upbringing. That is, until his father decided to die in a duel because, this is the time in history where men liked poking each other with sharp objects for kicks. His mother, believing he was not traumatized enough by the event, sent him to live with his architect uncles. They placed him in a good school and had high hopes for him becoming an architect like them. However, David had other plans and soon went to learn from François Boucher, who was a Rococo artist and a distant relative of David. At the same point in time, the art world realized that there was enough old lady napkin artwork made.
Okay, wrap this set. Aren't you tired of this goddamn swing?
The discovery of the ruins of Pompeii and the Herculaneum led artists to clear the way for more of a classical form of art. And that's when David moved on to learning with Joseph-Marie Villon. Eventually, David joined the Royal Academy and even continued his studies in the French Academy in Rome. While in Rome, he met Raphael, who greatly affected his style. When David came back to France in 1780, he quickly started associating with revolutionary leaders. You see, Jacques-Louis David was far more than your usual Joe Schmo artist. He was deeply involved in the politics of the French Revolution. He became a member of the influential Jacobin Club, one of the most radical political groups of the era. Think Hell's Angels of the French Revolution. Both Marat and David were involved with the Jacobin Club, and specifically the Montegrad faction of it. Jean-Paul Marat was a doctor, writer, and one of the most radical leaders of the French Revolution. Through his newspaper, L'Ami du Peuple, the Friend of the People, he fiercely criticized the monarchy and urged ordinary citizens to defend the revolution using some unorthodox ways. He was known for his passionate and often controversial writings. I'll be honest with you. Today, he would be canceled faster than the Dana Carvey show.
What's that?
Exactly. The French National Convention commissioned David to paint 3 paintings depicting political martyrs, glorifying them. These are not religious martyrs as the world of art knew, but a brand new kind of martyr, dying to make a political change. This is the beginning of the end of the monarchy. So, how did Marat turn from this to this? Enter stage right, Charlotte Corday. Charlotte Corday was a royalist from the Girondin political faction. The Girondins often clashed with the more radical Montagnards, the political group Marat belonged to. Charlotte Corday came to see Marat as a key figure in the revolution. Marat suffered from a severe skin condition and conducted most of his revolutionary business while soaking in a bathtub. Corday gained entry to his home under the pretense of delivering a list of traitors and fatally stabbed him. She was arrested on the spot and executed by... You guessed it! She was executed by the guillotine days later, calmly stating that she killed one man to save 100,000. So, now that we understand what brought David to paint this painting, let's talk about how he chose to display it. On the one hand, this seems to be a private lament for a friend that was murdered. On the other hand, this is clearly propaganda, a piece charged with political nuances and motives that are created to elevate Marat from a journalist to a saint, a mythological hero. Our gaze first goes to Marat's face, and then immediately moves to his right hand slumped on the floor. His hand is still holding the quill he was writing with when his killer came in and stabbed him in the chest. His position resembles that of Christ in the Pietà. This is a deliberate decision David made. Moving to Marat's left hand, he is holding a blood-stained letter, a letter from his killer. The two hands, one clenching the quill, clenching to the fight, the written word by the journalist, his life, while the other is holding on to his death. When looking at the hands, it becomes clear that the one holding the quill, when isolated from the rest of the scene, resembles a hand caught mid-writing, animated, restless, alive. In contrast, the hand holding the letter appears unmistakably lifeless. Its bluish tone and the stiffness suggest rigor mortis has already set in. David leaves us suspended between two worlds, the living and the dead. On the box that Marat used as a makeshift desk, there is a second quill. Seems quite redundant, doesn't it? But when looking at his position, we can see why it was placed there. Quill's sharp tip is pointing towards Marat's chest, towards the spot where Marat was fatally wounded.
Why not put the knife there?
Marat was a man of words. His journalism was a big part of the revolutionary fight and the Jacobin movement. By placing the quill there, David is asking, was Marat killed by a blade or by words? The quill is fighting against the quill. This is a war of ideals, thus sharpening both the violence of the act and the ideas behind it. On the desk, there is a letter that Marat was writing. The letter is held by paper money. You will give this assignment to this mother of 5 children whose husband died defending the fatherland, showing us that Marat, even in his death, is doing an act of service and generosity. Additionally, this letter from the widow serves another purpose in this painting. The contradiction between two women, the good one, the widow who lost her husband to the fight of the revolution, versus the bad, Corday, who took his life. This fight between female forces, one personifying good and the other evil, is a well-known concept in art. For example, in the mythological story, The Choice of Hercules. Hercules is faced with two women who personify opposing paths, virtue and vice. One is modest and elevated, the other sensual and indulgent. The entire painting is built around psychological tension between these feminine forces. David is reusing this allegory for the revolution in The Death of Marat, with the soul of the French nation that is at stake, standing between two forces. While David wasn't there when the murder occurred, he did attend the crime scene shortly after and used the police report to give this piece more of an eyewitness touch. However, he also intentionally left out some details. The wall next to Marat is clean, even though the report stated that there was a bookshelf there. David is clearing the room to create a scene that is similar to a stage in theater. The details he places in the painting are well planned. He also took liberty in the way he presented Marat. Although he is in a blood-filled bath,
Dexter Morgan!
He has no defense wounds or blood on his body other than the stab wound. He is choosing to present Marat with a muscle tone that resembles a Roman statue, rather than a man who spends most of his days in a bath with a quill. A similar position of hand can also be observed in his painting Andromache Mourning Hector. Additionally, as we mentioned, Marat was suffering from a skin condition that left his skin disfigured and full of sores. In the painting, Marat's skin is flawless. All of these elements are helping to turn this gruesome crime scene into a holy moment that displays Marat as a martyr. And here is where it gets interesting. David was planning Marat's funeral, and when his body was presented to the Pantheon, he was displayed to the public lying down on a Roman bed with his hand hanging down holding a quill. So he was planning to display Marat as a martyr before he was ever commissioned to create this painting. In a way, this is a depiction of the crime scene as well as of Marat's funeral. Lastly, on the makeshift desk, there is writing, "Ah, Marat," meaning for Marat, making it clear it was a tribute to his friend Marat. David survived these political upheavals and later reinvented himself under Napoleon Bonaparte, becoming Napoleon's official court painter. He created some of the most famous images of the emperor, including Napoleon crossing the Alps, like 7 times, and the coronation of Napoleon. One of the great ironies of David's life is that he championed Republican democracy during the revolution, but later became the chief artist celebrating an emperor. His art was never meant to be a napkin. It was a powerful political tool used to shape how people understood power, heroism, and history. Can your grandma's napkin do that? Didn't think so. Tell your French teacher about us. And remember, kids, les autres artistes meurent jeunes.
Vive la Revolution!
Hit the like button and subscribe, you lovely YouTube peasant.